You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Well, Chris O'Brien is back this week. He missed last week's episode for reasons he'll explain in just a moment, as he's already outlined on our other show after the Paracast. But last week we had a terrific episode. Kurt Collins was the last-minute guest co-host. We featured Red Pill Junkie with some just amazing discussions, which filtered into after the Paracast and also formed the basis of the editorial in the Paracast newsletter, perhaps the best newsletter we've ever had. Chris, welcome back. What kept you away last week?
Well, just kind of an emergency. I had a good friend who, received a new kidney about 8 months ago, and just having a hard time fighting an infection. So I ended up having to take him to the hospital. He's still there, and just hoping for the best.
Of course, you can tell our listeners who this person is, because he is someone whom our listeners should know.
Yeah, Clifford Mahudi, my Zuni friend.
Well, we certainly hope he gets better.
Erstwhile funny man. He's not feeling very funny right now.
Well, we well understand that, and hopefully he'll be feeling a lot better real soon now.
Yep.
In the meantime, last week we brought out something which is probably not original, but it has fueled a lot of fascinating discussion, and that is the possible relationship between UFO abductions and near-death experiences. In both cases, seeing some other place, interpreted in different ways. And it's something I hadn't thought about, but then if you look at it, it seems perfectly logical. Chris?
Yeah, it does. I've always felt that there was some commonalities between what appear to be, completely separate experiences or, categories of experiences. And I've always had a sense that there's a deep underlying connecting point on some level. And I think any thinking that's done along those lines could be quite fruitful and might bear some results.
See, the problem right now with investigations is that they're put into categories, which seems sensible. If you have a near-death experience or you are on the operating table, for example, you stop breathing and you have these visions or whatever it is, you look at them and say, well, I was dead clinically and therefore this is a near-death experience. But then when you encounter some kind of creature, maybe while you were asleep or when you're in an altered state of consciousness, you figure it's not a near-death experience because you weren't dead. Therefore, maybe it's ET, maybe it's some kind of other creature, other being. And that's why we have this sort of separation. But it may be here that it's not the means to the altered state of consciousness, but the end result.
Well, yeah, exactly. You should never throw anything out or factor anything in. I think we should all be open-minded and creative and think out of the box a little bit. And it's always good to find and look for and find commonalities and connecting points. And when you're comparing any two sets of data, experiences, categories of experience, or what have you. And to me, it's a no-brainer that it's highly possible that there are some connecting points between these two seemingly divergent phenomena.
But you have to have a more expansive view of mysteries around us.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as you attribute something to ET, you're putting it in a box. As soon as you say this is a near-death experience because I was clinically dead, and therefore maybe I saw heaven, or the way station between here and heaven, I'm putting it in a box.
Yeah. So, take it out of the box.
Well, that's the whole point. And that's the problem with investigating subjects like this. We are so quick to find a place where they must fit. And once they fit in those categories, like UFOs must be spaceships, as soon as we fit them into the category of UFOs being spaceships, we can't look at other possibilities. And we're not necessarily dismissing the possibility of UFOs and spaceships, mind you.
No. Yeah, but again, you just, until we have enough data to really come up with a solid, concrete answer that's, irrefutable, nobody really knows for sure. So, we always have to keep open minds about all this stuff. And I know we sound like broken records constantly harping on this, but it's true. And especially people coming into the field, maybe newbies who really don't have the background and haven't read all the books, haven't kept up on the cases, and you know, they're struggling to bring themselves up to speed. And you know, unfortunately, too many of them rely on the media, and especially television, and you're going to get such a skewed view of all this type of phenomenal information if you think Hollywood is the end all to be all in terms of your educational process. I just, you know, I'm sad to tell you that unfortunately, you know, shows like this and reading books and getting yourself up to speed, finding authors and smart people that make sense, you know, and really absorbing their work and reaping the benefit of their insight and the quality of and the depth of their thinking. You can't allow the media to be, you know, your educational system. It's just too trite. It's too shallow. It cuts too many corners. It generalizes, and it panders to, you know, the pop cultural beliefs that it's partially and almost, I think, almost exclusively responsible for creating in the first place. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox.
Well, part of the problem here is also the evidence may indeed be out there, but we're putting it in a box that maybe it doesn't fit in that box. So until or unless we look at that evidence with a more expansive possibility, or simply take it as it is and see where it fits, rather than say, well, this must be the UFO, and this must be the near-death experience, and this must be the ghost, and this must be the Bigfoot, if we don't look into the possibility that some of these things might be related, if we don't lock them down.
No. Well, I think, you know, our guest this week, Chris Rutkowski, is a perfect example of somebody who is healthily skeptical, but open-minded and interested enough and motivated enough to actually do some real quality work. And although it's all grounded in science and grounded in very objective, you know, healthily skeptical kind of that sort of a perspective and viewpoint, his work is invaluable. And there's few people that, you know, I can say that about up in Canada. I mean, he's really kind of he's a real pillar of I think integrity and objectivity up there. And it's great to have him on the show because I learn a lot every time he's on. He's quite a brilliant guy, and we need more people like that. We need more people who are willing to, you know, claim their skeptical side, but at the same time not close themselves down and lock doors behind them and become part of the problem, not part of any potential solution.
Now, when we discussed last week's episode with Red Pill Junkie, there were two parts to it. Of course, there was the part on the Paracast, and the second part, where he went on for another 35 minutes or so, more information about his theory about near-death experiences and UFO abductions and other things. He continued that in the After the Paracast podcast. And there's only one way for you to get that show, and that's to subscribe to the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. So we give you After the Paracast. We have a little chat room there that we might turn into special events one of these days. We're working on video content, and we also give you the ad-free version of this show. We take out 41 minutes of network commercials. We encode it at a higher bit rate so it sounds better. You get all that with the Paracast Plus. And if you subscribe to a year or 5 years, you get a copy of Chris O'Brien's Stalking the Tricksters, the ebook version, in PDF format, so you don't even need a Kindle to read it. Really, it's great. Plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. Chris Rutkowski is going to be here in just a moment with Gene and Chris. I guess we call him KK for this episode with Gene and KK. You're in
the Paracast.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
Okay, open your mouth and say ah.
Ah. When your child has a sore throat, you need to know when to get help. The doctor-recommended Say Ah Sore Throat Exam is your solution. The scientifically designed oral retractor offers a clear view of the throat, relaxing the tongue and minimizing gag reflex. Compare with a medical-grade chart, website, and app. Then you'll know just what to tell your doctor. A wellness plan in your hands in minutes. Go to SayAHHnow.com. SayAhNow.com, the new mainstay for every family's first aid kit.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
On the Paracast this week, and our friend Mr. O'Brien is back under the original name of KK because we have another Chris Rutkowski, who we bring on the show every so often to bring us a reality check about UFOs and related mysteries. We kind of need that reality check because things get kind of crazy and wacky all the time. And also for those of you who think there are no more sightings, if you look at Chris's site, you find there are constant barrages of sighting, especially in Canada. In fact, I'm going to ask you about that right now because we've been seeing that the last few years, larger numbers of cases. Is that because more people are seeing or looking for things, or is it just that the number of cases is higher?
Well, that's a good question. And I think it's a combination of those two plus a few more factors. There's no question that it's certainly a lot easier now to report your sightings than a number of years ago because, you can go online and type in, report UFO sighting. And there's a lot of websites that'll do that. I think people are spending a little more time, believe it or not, instead of looking down at their phones. There are people who spend some time looking up and maybe they've been looking down at their phones so long that looking up they'll see something. So I think there's a factor there as well. But there are, of course, more things up there. I mean, the number of satellites that are being launched and breaking apart and so forth are certainly, that number is increasing. There's more aircraft that are being sent out there. So I think there certainly are more and more things. And of course, with the advent of drones and all other paraphernalia that are being sent up in local areas, I think there are more things to be seen. But I think the fact is that people really are puzzled by what they're seeing in the sky. And if they're not used to it, they'll report it.
Do we see, because we have drones and all these things, that there are more false positives, more things being reported that turn out to be conventional?
Drones is a good example where, in theory, there are a lot of drones out there, and that's certainly possible what people are seeing. But we do really get few reports of drones. I like Chinese lanterns. There's no question that a lot of cases are Chinese lanterns. That doesn't mean that every case is a Chinese lantern. In fact, there are cases where lights are seen that don't have the characteristics of Chinese lanterns, but it's assumed they're Chinese lanterns because it occurred during a festival of some sort, and people thought that that's what was being seen. Same thing with drones. No question that drones are a good explanation for more and more cases. There's more and more going up there. People are flying them without authorization over places they shouldn't be flying them. There's near misses with aircraft. There's people flying drones outside of apartment buildings. So there's no question that drones can explain a lot of cases. But there are other characteristics of UFOs that are being reported that are very undrone-like, like noiseless, for example, like behaving in fashions where they will move and dart about, but they're being flown at night in treed areas and in areas where it would be very tough to fly a drone. These things cost a lot of money. I don't know if I'd be flying my drone around areas where they might get damaged and fall apart. So,
right. Or at night, just flying at night could be very hazardous to your technology's health.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No question people do that. But just because there certainly are drones out there being flown at night doesn't mean that that's what UFOs are explainable as. But it's certainly adding to a lot of the confusion. It's certainly something that people investigating UFOs have to take into account now.
Well, if Amazon starts sending drones to bring you a copy of a book or something, or a router for your computer, they're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can just wait for that. Now, I had noticed some time back that you were listed among the members of the Roswell Slides Research Group.
Yep.
How did you get sucked into that?
Well, I was originally part of the Dream Team itself.
Yeah, whatever happened to the Dream Team?
Yeah, well, they got pretty...
Became the Nightmare Team.
No, I was actually invited quite a long time ago by Kevin Randall to join Carrie and so forth when they started on this venture. And then after some exchange of correspondence, I never heard from anyone again. And it turns out that when the Dream Team, or the true Dream Team, came forward with their announcement that they were going to have the slides on display, my name wasn't listed among them. So somewhere along the way, they dropped me. And I'm not sure what happened there. I was never actually shown the slides. And when people started talking about the Dream Team, coming forward with the slides, I got all the questions. So I started being curious about this. And I noticed the discussions on Facebook and elsewhere. And I joined in and was very confused as to why this thing was being pushed when it was so obviously a mummy. And joined in the discussion with that at a very early stage. And along the way, I got brought into the inner circle of the not-so-Dream Team of the Roswell Slides.
The Nightmare Club.
Nightmare Club, yeah. And, of course, that's morphed into the Puerto Rican Club, but that's another case altogether.
We heard about that from Kurt Collins last week. Is there anything more you can tell us about that?
Well, no, I think Isaac Coy has just recently, over the past couple of days, published a manifesto that's probably as long as the SCU report itself, going into detail as to what's seen frame by frame and how do we deal with it and how do we explain it and how do we describe what's going on, which is a very thorough analysis. And that's just started over the past couple of days. So over the coming weeks, people will start contributing to that, and we'll see a little bit more.
Well, why don't you describe for some of our listeners who may not be up to speed on that particular piece of visual evidence or alleged visual evidence? Why don't you give them a little thumbnail on that? Yeah.
A couple of years ago, there was a video that began circulating in ufology circles of a infrared video, or video taken with an infrared camera of an object moving over the skies in Puerto Rico. And it passed over an airfield and a number of other prominent locations, and it appeared to be moving very quickly. And the interpretation was that this was an unexplained object, that it was not a plane or balloon or bird or anything. And a group of individuals, among them Rich Hoffman and a few others, produced a very, very detailed report under the guise of a group called SCU, Scientific, what was that again? Scientific something of ufology. Anyways, they produced a very long report analyzing this video and some of the what's been said about it, saying that it doesn't have the characteristics of any conventional object. And in fact, it's at one point, or actually several points in the video, it appears to fly down into the water over the ocean and out again a few times, which is something impossible by conventional craft. And towards the end of the video, it actually splits in two. So their interpretation isn't that it's identified as a spacecraft, it's just that they say that it has no characteristics of anything conventional. And they back it up with a lot of scientific terminology and interpretation by experts. And they've sort of presented it as a test case of what can be done regarding a really good evidential video of a UFO.
We'll have more about this particular Puerto Rican case and other subjects. We also have lots of questions from our listeners to ask of our guest, Chris Rutkowski. So there's a lot of room to cover here. With Gene and with KK, you're in
the Paracast. A little right, a little left, but always independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
The human body is more than 60% water. Your brain and muscles are 75% water. And your blood is 92% water. Water's vital to your body, and alkalizing your water is the key to keep it running at its best. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops keep your entire body healthy, boosts energy, promotes weight loss, and even fights cancer. Call 800-518-7615 or go to alkavision.com to find out more. That's ALKAvision.com.
Sciatica, lower back pain, hip pain, poor posture. If you suffer from any of these problems, get ready to relax. Introducing an amazing product that's been in the market for over 25 years, the Sacro Wedgie. It was invented by a football coach using a common-sense osteopath technique. He created this device to help his athletes by isolating and supporting the sacrum, which is the keystone of our anatomy. This wedge-shaped bone is in the center of our hips, where a lot of pain starts. Simply relax 20 minutes daily on the amazingly simple Sacro Wedgie and let gravity gravity do the work, helping muscles rebalance and start releasing nerves. Sit in the Sacro Wedgie at the computer or while traveling to help correct posture to finally help relieve those stubborn aches and pains for only $33.95. It's made in the USA, so click the family-owned website at sacrowedgie.com, spelled SACROWEDGY.com, or call 1-800-737-9295. That's 1-800-737-9295. Relax your back pain away with the Sacro Wedgie.
Do you owe the IRS money? Has the IRS garnished your wages or put a lien against your house? The IRS has the power to make you pay back what they claim you owe and will stop at nothing to collect. There is a solution. Call Signature Tax now. Speak with our professionals and feel the weight of your tax burden lifted from your shoulders. Call now for your free and confidential analysis. 800-481-3147. Again, that's 800-481-3147. 800-481-3147.
On the average, Americans work between 45 to 50 years, hoping to build up enough wealth to retire and live out their golden years. Unfortunately, with taxation, the rising cost of food, energy, housing, and medical, many retirees are forced to live below the poverty line. Is this a flaw of free enterprise, or is our monetary unit we call the Federal Reserve Note forcing us into perpetual debt, ensuring inflation and higher taxes? These questions and more can be answered by reading G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Congressman Ron Paul states it's what every American needs to know about central bank power. A gripping adventure into the secret world of international banking cartel. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. I will give a silver dollar from the early 1900s to anyone who purchases this book. Call 1-800-686-2237 and order a copy today. It's critical that the public be made aware of the system. Call and order your copy today at 1-800-686-2237. That's 1-800-686-2237.
Are you excited about the World Wide Web? Do you want a place where you can share your ideas and express yourself? Well, dial up your modems and stream on down to the GCN Live Community Forum. Lots of radical features await you there.
Wow, Internet guy, I am so glad I went to the GCN Live Community Forum.
You too can discover why the World Wide Web is awesome. Just go to gcnlive.com/forum. That's gcnlive.com/forum. I'll see you in cyberspace. Friend GCN Live on Diaspora and Cross.tv.
Hey, this is Marie D. Jones, the author of This Book is from the Future, and you are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
When we use Chris under his real name, Chris O'Brien's real name, the voice he does for the Paracast changes. And a little bit later, I'll give you a hint here, we're going to see how Chris Rutkowski does it, but not now. We don't want to explain. Anything else you can tell us about this Puerto Rican case before we move on?
No, other than the fact that it's being dissected bit by bit by a new group parallel to the Roswell Slides Group. And the reviews aren't completely positive. Not that they did anything wrong, it's just that it doesn't appear to be as unexplainable as purported. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it could, in fact, be some kind of mylar balloon, or actually more than one mylar balloon. In fact, there's one possibility that it could actually be pelicans, and this goes back to pelicanism and the old days of ufology, where people were claiming to be birds of one sort or another. But it's interesting to see the debate rage on. I don't know where it's going to go. To me, it simply does look like a balloon or cluster of balloons, and that's without having any technical expertise in analyzing how infrared cameras work. So we'll see where that goes.
How many of you are involved in this? Exact same people as the Roswell Slides Group, or just a few of the same?
Again, the list has just been formulated over the past couple of days. It looks to be almost the same as the Roswell Slides Group, with one or two dropouts and add-ins. I think Ted Rose in this group. I don't think he was in the Roswell Slides Group originally. But it's, about a half dozen to 10 or so. And it's just people who are really fascinated with the subject with open minds. Tim Printy, again, an art skeptic, is part of this group, as he was with the Slides Group. Kurt and Isaac and a number of others. So there's a good group of people who have a lot of knowledge behind them. And I would call them maybe skeptical objectivists, or or unbiased skeptics, perhaps, where, we're not necessarily out to debunk anything, and all with the exception of Tim Printy, maybe, but certainly people who are trying to figure out what is actually being reported and what was actually seen, to trying to get to the bottom of what really is going on. And ultimately, that's the whole point of serious ufology and investigative ufology, trying to understand what it is that people are seeing and reporting. There's some discussion about the provenance, and I go on about provenance a few times in my discussions about the origin of the video. How did we get the video? How did ufology get a hold of an infrared video taken by apparently somebody with Homeland Security? I mean, how does that work? That we could be in possession of such a video, who took it, and how come we can't actually talk to the original pilot, the original photographer, and so forth. So there's some concern about where the video came from, and we have to go through all this process in order to ascertain the factual information regarding a case. Otherwise, it's just something that's claimed, and we want to really understand what is being reported, so that when the scientific community comes to look at the case, if they ever do, we can say these are the answers to all the questions you might have. In effect, the Roswell Slides Group and now the Puerto Rican Group are, I suppose, the true liaison between the scientific community and ufology, in that this is sort of the intermediate step to take before it goes to the scientific community and say, yes, there really is some evidence for UFOs, and this is what you need to look at.
So why has it taken almost 70 years to get to this point? Shouldn't this have been done back in 1950?
I don't think it could have been done in 1950 because we didn't have the expertise. People didn't have the capability of the technology back then. We didn't have access to the report files in the 1950s. Those were really really in the hands of the military and the government. Certainly, there were civilian UFO groups, but most of the civilian UFO groups were composed not really of a lot of scientific individuals, but there were some people involved. But by and large, the civilian UFO groups were people who were basically laymen and laywomen that really didn't have a good grasp of what was seeing. The aeronautical expertise wasn't there. The electronic, the flight engineering, all that type of thing simply didn't exist. We certainly had more by, let's say, the 60s, 70s, 80s. Coincidentally, as the dawn of the internet broke upon us in the 80s and into the 90s, we were able to have the average citizen use computers to crunch numbers and look at videos and so forth. So it really took technological advancements to the point where we have, anybody can download programs to analyze software, to analyze videos, to analyze photographs right now, in the sense that, there also is the technology to fake it. There also is the technology to analyze it. And it's in the hands of the average person sitting in their basement or attic in front of a computer. So anyone has the ability to do some decent analysis and good scientific work.
Well, that's certainly a healthy change, and I like to see this continue. Do you think there'll be sequels to this, that this particular group, the Roswell Slides Group, or as we call it, the topic that shall not be named, and the Puerto Rican group, do you think that will morph into something more permanent?
I think that you'll see a dedicated group of individuals, and I don't know what it would look like, whether they're going to be holding their own conferences or whatnot, of people who are really looking intently and analyzing the heck out of some of the UFO cases. It's interesting, there is a parallel in, I guess, ghost hunting. There is the pop ghost hunting stuff that you see on TV and on all the videos. But when you go to paranormal conferences, there's usually not quite a dead dog session, but there's a number of sessions where some of the serious paranormal investigators sit around together and show off their best evidence to each other, usually in a hotel room somewhere, usually accompanied by a lot of liquid imbibing. But they show it off to each other, and the purpose is for each other to tear each other's evidence apart. so that what's left is only the really, really good cases. And usually what happens is not much is left after most sessions like that. There really isn't anything like that in ufology yet, although it does seem that we're seeing the beginnings of this. Right now in ufology, there's a term that has been kicked around in philosophy called metamodernism. And I would say
Why'd you say that again so we can write it down?
It's called metamodernism.
Okay.
And some people are familiar with the term modernism as in art and postmodernism as in art and a few other things. Philosophers are of the opinion that we've now progressed into what's called metamodernism. So in modernism, there are discussions and theories proposed about the nature of reality and how art works, and people sort of appreciate it, and they look at what's been produced by who's ever talking about it or producing it, and they can debate it, they can discuss it, but in general, things are being discussed as giving a statement about what's going on. In postmodernism, what happens is that you look at who is doing the presenting. Why has somebody said such a thing? Why is that particular building shaped like that? Why is that poem structured like that? And you look at who's saying it. Did the person have a reason? Is there a political reason why that poem was phrased that way? Why that artwork was, set up outside a post office or whatever? What was the person's goal in doing that? And it was that, people have some meaning behind their theories. In metamodernism, and this is a movement throughout all of art and culture right now, it's anything goes. Everyone is an expert. Everyone has a say, and everyone's right. It's political correctness gone completely awry.
It sounds like political correctness to the nth degree.
To the nth
degree. You become so correct that everything is correct. But let's get into more of this in a couple of moments, or maybe not. Let's not be politically correct because of the show this is. Chris Rutkowski joins Gene and KK.
Ming the Merciless says we will be back after these messages. You are in the Paracast, Flash Gordon, and you will suffer.
We are the premier independent talk radio network, the Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Conspiracy Journal is your #1 source for the hidden world of the weird and strange. We bring you thought-provoking and controversial material for free-thinking individuals who are seeking what is really going on in our world today. Some of this material may adversely affect you. Other pieces are meant to enlighten. Either way, be prepared to be intrigued by such things as the reality of UFOs, ghosts, strange creatures from time and space, hidden conspiracies, time travel, Nikola Tesla, suppressed technology, and a whole lot more. You can find out more by visiting our website at conspiracyjournal.com. There you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter sent directly to your email address. Find out what they don't want you to know.
Do you owe the IRS money? Has the IRS garnished your wages or put a lien against your house? The IRS has the power to make you pay back what they claim you owe and will stop at nothing to collect. There is a solution. Call Signature Tax now. Speak with our professionals and feel the weight of your tax burden lifted from your shoulders. Call now for your free and confidential analysis. 800-481-3147. Again, that's 800-481-3147. 800-481-3147.
We've been patiently waiting while you tried to ignore us, waiting while you acted like we didn't exist, waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tablet or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
We the people grow.
You are an individual with your own thoughts, decisions, and actions. So why should you be penalized for not enrolling in the subpar health insurance mandated by the government? Be truly independent. Visit libertyoncall.org. LibertyOnCall.org is a bold, innovative alternative allowing you to take back control and make your own decisions about your health care. Mention this ad when you call to learn more. 800-714-6993. That's 800-714-6993. LibertyOnCall.org. Call today.
That's the sound your brain makes when you realize you're buying something and forgot the coupon. Online or in a store, knowing that you're missing a deal is the worst. You need the app from Retail Me Not right now. Get thousands of coupons from 50,000 stores like Kohl's, Domino's, Best Buy, and more with crazy deals like 60% off, free shipping, and free gifts with purchase. You can get a text invite to download the Retail Me Not app 100% free right now for Apple or Android. Just text the code UPDATE to 42767. Then just show your phone at checkout to save. It literally couldn't be easier. It's 2015. Keep your coupons in your phone. Stop what you're doing and text UPDATE to 42767. Listeners will get a text with a link to download it 100% free. Never forget another coupon again. Text the code UPDATE to 42767 right now. That's UPDATE to 42767. Message and data rates may apply. For terms and privacy, visit retailmenot.com.
Healthy, organic, fresh fish, robust, mouth-watering vegetables, all from your home. It's called aquaponics. This brilliant, self-sustaining protein and veggie system is perfect for year-round growing. Know exactly where your food is coming from. Aquaponicssource.com is the one-stop shop for all your needs. Fish, fish food, plumbing, full systems, classes, and more. Learn to build your own system. Go to aquaponicssource.com for a free guide to aquaponics. That's aquaponicssource.com.
Hi, it's Grant Cameron from presidentialufo.com. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
He sounds like he's really Blofeld. Okay? Maybe you're channeling Blofeld there.
I could be channeling Blofeld, yeah.
We might actually see a Blofeld in this new James Bond movie, Spectre, although nobody has officially been cast as a character named Blofeld. But I have a feeling one of the other characters is revealed as Blofeld.
I'm really looking forward to the next James Bond. I'm looking more forward to Ash versus the Living Dead, but that's another movie.
Some people are looking forward to Supergirl on CBS.
That's true.
No, I don't know. That's the most popular show in terms of pre-season buzz in the social networks in the United States.
Is the James Bond?
No, it's Supergirl.
Oh, Supergirl, really?
Yes.
Huh.
I think it is that everybody likes this girl who's playing Supergirl, Melissa Benoist.
I did see the teaser trailer, the extended one that's 5 or 10 minutes long. It's actually pretty good.
I saw the full pilot, which is unofficially available if you look hard enough. And she just owns the role.
Yeah.
She plays, the nerdy Kara who works as an executive assistant or something, who becomes Supergirl.
Yeah.
And it's like she owns it. She loves being that person, which is why you believe her.
And it will be interesting to see how they incorporate that into the new DC universe with Flash and Arrow and so forth.
Well, it's produced by the same people who produce Flash and Arrow.
Right, and they're setting up for the big DC Justice League and whatnot that's coming up. So we'll see.
He's another comic book nerd, you notice?
Absolutely.
Is there any other kind? I don't think KK is a comic book nerd, are you?
No. I like Turok, Son of Stone, my Golden Key Indians back in the day, back in the 60s.
Oh, I'm a Doc Savage fan, actually.
They
never did that right on TV,
I never.
Who was it? The guy who played Tarzan, Ron Ely, played Doc Savage, and was a perfectly awful movie.
Yeah.
No.
We can do a separate show on that,
We could.
Maybe someday we'll do a separate thing. We do explore pop culture to some degree on our other radio show, the Tech Night Owl Live, because technology is so much at the forefront. So, for example, in these new comic book series from the CW and CBS, the special effects are really well done. And that's because the technology has reached a point where you could do this stuff with a much smaller budget for TV and get away with it and make it convincing.
Well, yeah. When you think of the advances in in CGI and whatnot that are produced in the movies. It's really quite amazing how far we've advanced.
I'll give you one example. We'll get back to UFOs and such. In the Supergirl teasers, you see this one scene where Supergirl falls over the side of the building. Her friend Wynn is going crazy. And a few seconds later, she zooms up into the air and comes down to this pinpoint landing. And that is a really well done special effect. Obviously, it's a mixture of CGI and somebody sitting there and jumping into place. But the way it's done is so effective. Take a look at it. That's an example of really the high-grade special effects. But it also means that anybody with a decent set of skills and $300 for a copy of Final Cut Pro X on a Mac can create some really marvelous fake UFO pictures.
Oh yeah, I was actually on a plane somewhere, and somebody was on his laptop sitting next to me, and I don't know whether it was Final Cut or whatever, but he was actually doing a final cut of a TV show that he was a producer for, or not a producer, but he was involved in, and he was doing the final cut on his laptop on a plane. And when you think the technology is out there to do that, that's just amazing.
And now, of course, the new higher-end Macs can do 4K video. Mm-hmm. They have 5K screens, so you can actually do a native 4K video and room for all the menu bars and everything.
Yep. It's amazing what we have right now. Those darn computers. What did Marvin say? Those nasty computers?
Something like that. I want to ask you something else, which kind of drifts away from all these things.
You don't think we've drifted away far enough yet?
Oh, no, we're going to go further. We're going to go into the stratosphere now. I sent you this link. You probably didn't have a chance to read it. But last week you had Red Pill Junkie on the show. I'm sure you know him.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Now, Miguel is a terrific person, and I'll give you the background of this. We mentioned this on After the Paracast, but not on this show. We have a weekly Paracast newsletter, and I do most of the writing because nobody else really wants to do it. I do it. And occasionally I ask other people. We've had Paul Kimball do it. We had Stanton Friedman do it, and Chris has done a couple. And I was intrigued by a theory that Red Pill Junkie had mentioned on our show last week, where he was talking about the similarities between near-death experiences and UFO abductions, the commonalities. And I said, this is interesting. Why don't you write a 900 or 1,000-word editorial for our next newsletter? This is on like a Friday morning at 10 o'clock. Exactly 25 hours later, he gives me the manuscript. He says, I'm sorry, it ran a little bit over, but here it is. 4,660 words.
Yeah, I actually did read it. What do you think I am, anyway? It's an interesting document. I agree that there are similarities. He's done a great job. Great post. I have some issues. Of course, I addressed a little bit of this in my own book, Abductions and Aliens, available on Amazon, where I looked at all the various theories about abductions and what they might represent. I did touch on some near-death experiences at one point. Some of there are similarities, where the witness or abductee or the person in the experience is, in a dreamlike state and so forth. Certain other aspects, the one that got me was the subject is submitted to examination. This is about the review of life. And in near-death experiences, it's the review of one's life is the examination of one's life. But abductees don't report that necessarily as real examination, where the anal probes and all of that sort of stuff. And I think there's enough of a dissimilarity there to say, well, maybe this isn't quite the same thing. And I guess I would say that for a lot of the similarities, there are some tweaks that you have to do to say that they really are related like that. I would say the commonalities are that a lot of the abductions and near-death experiences are certainly more related to dreamlike states in general. In other words, they seem to have a lot of common to dreams rather than to each other. And so if we think that there is a relationship there, I think that's where the relationship really is. But I think that his list, I don't know how many, 15 or 20 commonalities, is a good one to start the discussions on. I think it's it's fudging a bit to say that they're almost identical, but there's certainly some commonalities there that make one think that there is some relationship.
The whole anal probe thing, though, is not duplicated in near-death experiences. And if it is, we know which direction the particular individual is headed. I think they're on the down escalator.
Yeah, well, that's one example. I mean, there's certainly some other things. The subject is taken to an unfamiliar environment. Well, in near-death experiences, it's the old tunnel of white, or whatever, the tunnel that leads to the white light and that type of thing. Whereas abductees, certainly they're taken on board, as some say they're a spacecraft, but they describe their spacecraft as spacecraft, and there's very detailed descriptions of where they are and what the, if they're taken on board and end up somewhere, their descriptions of where they are in terms of this craft or the location in physical reality, what the aliens look like. And that's, to me, quite a different phenomenon than the tunnel leading to the white light and that type of thing. So again, there certainly are some commonalities there, but I wouldn't say enough for me to say that they are probably related. Well, that's a good place for me to kind of start in. We have quite a few questions for you on our forum at forum.theparacast.com, where our listeners get a chance to ask questions of our esteemed guests. And a fellow Canadian, ufology, Randall in Calgary, has a question for you. And he's wondering, what is your general impression of the public's current acceptance, or lack thereof, to alien visitation compared to other times in history? Do you see any trends of any kind right now?
Let's have him do that answer in our next segment, okay? This way we can just wrap this up and progress. A reminder to be able to download after the Paracast, our second radio show. You have to join the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. With Gene and KK and Chris Rutkowski. You're in the Paracast.
Free from the shackles of corporate America, we're the place for independent thinkers. GCN.
Ray Perkins, a reclusive veteran burned out from the Gulf War, lives tortured by relentless, perplexing nightmares. Nightmares of a horrific battle in deep space and of a mysterious woman suffering in agony for her devastated world. A woman not yet born, calling across centuries to him. Then, a coincidence leads him to his destiny, his chance to alter the universe. Attack of the Rockoids. The former fiction editor for Star Wars and Indiana Jones, Robert Simpson, writes, "The soul of the novel Attack of the Rockoids lies in its heart and passion for building a convincing tale of a love that spans the galaxy, a thrilling story. Attack of the Rockoids is available now. Read a sample chapter and get a special discount off of the cover price at our website, rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com. Attack of the Rockoids, a novel in the grand science fiction tradition."
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom106.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 106.com. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom106.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Chris Rutkowski joins us this week, and we had a question from Randall, ufology on the table. And we have other questions from our listeners. If you go to forum.theparacast.com, you can check out the question bank where you can ask those questions. Chris, what's your response?
Does the public seem to be accepting alien visitations now as opposed to other times in history? I would say, boy, in the 50s, the contactee phenomenon was really, really big, and they had a lot of following. That's when giant rock was really in its real heyday. That people were talking about visiting Venus, and it was sort of accepted that contactees are visiting Venus, and this was when Adamski was getting close-up photographs of flying saucers and whatnot, and that was really well accepted. In fact, that's where the current ideas of aliens and flying saucers really came from, and that's how the fanciful notions really developed during that time, and we're still suffering because of a lot of that right now. And now, we have, I would argue that the abductee phenomenon has morphed back into contacteeism, where people are talking about contact with aliens who are, walking into bodies and telepathically talking to us, where there's a lot of channeling of information. The channeling has been going on for quite some time, over the past 75 years, but it seems to be really accepted now. I would say that overall, again, because of this metamodernism that I sort of started talking about, there's an acceptance that anything goes, that the alien visitations of contactees are as good as more nuts and bolts UFO sightings. In fact, some writers are saying we don't even need to record UFO sightings anymore, because we have the testimony of abductees and contactees that the aliens are really here. So I would say in pop culture, perhaps alien visitation is sort of assumed. Whereas during a period, let's say between the 60s to the 80s, there was an attempt to do more nuts and bolts ufology. But also during that time, we sort of got the John Keel, Jacques Vallée period of ultra-terrestrials too. So I certainly think it's gone through some waves. And I don't see any particular trend other than the metamodernistic view of ufology right now is that anything goes. Anyone can say and be an expert on anything, because who's going to contest it?
What do you think about these recent articles that have come out touting scientists at the University of California coming up with a hypothesis that suggests that space aliens have long settled on Earth and actually are living among us as observers? I guess this movement began around 2000, the whole thing was spearheaded by the work of Professor Jonathan Malcolm. What do you think of that?
Well, it actually goes back much further than that. Stranger at the Pentagon was written back in the...
Well, true. Frank Strange's, yeah. Of course,
70s or 60s or something. Yeah, I mean, that's been going around for quite some time now.
But scientists haven't gotten together and put their name on a theory like this. That's fairly unusual.
Well, yes and no. I mean, certainly scientists and people in professional standing and good standing have been making claims for quite some time. I mean, Edgar Mitchell just made the news again recently,
right? Because
of something very similar, that he has inside sources who told him that the aliens really are here and prevented Earth from turning into nuclear war and whatever. But he's just listening to whoever is telling him these things, and it could be anybody.
The other question is here, are they telling the people in the U.S. Congress to approve the deal with Iran over nuclear weapons?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who's telling them that? Exactly.
It appears that someone's telling them not to approve the deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certainly factions all over the place that, people are claiming to be experts in, politics, democracy, and the Middle East, and they're tying it all into ufology. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, because people are getting a little more, personally interested. They're becoming more activist. They're concerned about what's happening all around the world. They're concerned about climate change. They're concerned personally about violence and nuclear war and ISIS and everything. And they really want to do something and feeling powerless about it. So they actually are lobbying governments, and they will do anything to get the ear of government representatives. And there are a number of government representatives who are sympathetic to the UFO question. One can point to John Podesta, for example, and others. So I think it's an interesting way of getting people in positions of power to take notice of some of the more fanciful ideas, because they're at the when you pull away all the nonsense, there is a serious aspect to this. We should stop proliferation of nuclear weapons. We should try and get some control on a little more resolving conflict and that type of thing. And if the reason is because if we ever do go into space, what would aliens think? I mean, there's some serious implications here. So it is important to do that. And, whether it's because the aliens are out there and don't want us to, join the Galactic Club without resolving it, or simply to, keep the human race from, not blowing itself up, there are some good reasons for doing that. And I wouldn't be surprised if this continues, more and more.
Well, the emphasis has been, especially in the past 10 years, but certainly back to the days of the Vietnam War, where if there's a problem, we send troops out to fight that problem rather than resolve it in some diplomatic way. And at the end of the day, they always make it worse. Not just the troops who are killed or the troops who are injured, but all the side effects. This is why we have all the big argument right now over ISIS being an artifact of what we created when we went to war with Iraq, an undeclared war against a country that had no intent of attacking us. And we can argue the basis for that war one way or the other. But changing that philosophy, instead of going to war, going to talk and seeing how that works for a change can certainly help. But we can't say that ET is pushing us in that direction. Although at the end of the day, if we don't get together, there's not going to be an Earth to visit.
True. Oddly enough, tomorrow I'm speaking at a premiere of a 360-degree film by Rod Roddenberry, I guess Roddenberry's son, by his son, yes. Yeah, by the I guess his foundation or whatever. It's called White Room, and it's a thriller. And I'll give a spoiler because it has to do with are humans really ready to join the Galactic Club or not? Are we too bent on violence and conflict, or are we, leaning towards rational discussion and resolution? So
is that a rhetorical question, or do you really?
That's the premise of the film that's being premiered tomorrow. I've actually already seen it, and I don't want to give too much away, but that's the theme.
Well, if anybody thinks we're ready to join the galactic neighborhood, I'm not sure. I think we're probably locked in our little sandbox here, and we've got to learn to play nicely with each other before we're going to be allowed to, get out there and commingle with the rest of the galactic neighborhood.
Right, and of course that was the theme of the contactees of the 50s too. Stop nuclear war, love each other, put down your weapons, be nice to the environment and all that sort of stuff. And that's being echoed now, 60 years later, by the present-day abductees. And that's why I'm not all that impressed with a lot of what's going on in abduction research right now, because it's the same rhetoric that I've heard for many decades now.
Yeah.
And by the way, the thing that always reminds me of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original version, 1951, where Klaatu, E.T., comes down here and says, "Get your acts together, Earth people, or we'll take you down."
Yeah.
And that message was distilled among the contactees. The contactees were very, very heavily influenced by that film, even to the silvery uniform worn by the tall, godlike alien beings. Michael Rennie, godlike, I don't know. Chris Rutkowski is here this week with Gene and KK. You're in
the Paracast.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Why do over 50% of North Americans suffer from some form of chronic ailment? Could it be due to a toxic overload? It's time to take back your life. Get the lead out as well as the cadmium, mercury, and calcium. Extendovite is a garlic cayenne supplement with 5 other herbs that acts like a natural Drano, cleaning out the stored toxins, restoring your energy and youthfulness that we've lost. If you would like to live your life free of sickness, pain, or fear, then Extendovite is for you. Available in either capsules or liquid, you too can see why Extendovite is the #1 heart drop available. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You are an individual with your own thoughts, decisions, and actions. So why should you be penalized for not enrolling in the subpar health insurance mandated by the government? Be truly independent. Visit libertyoncall.org. LibertyOnCall.org is a bold, innovative alternative allowing you to take back control and make your own decisions about your health care. Mention this ad when you call to learn more. 800-714-6993. That's 800-714-6993. LibertyOnCall.org. Call today.
As if chlorine in our water weren't bad enough, now they're adding ammonia?
It's true. Some municipalities are now adding ammonia plus chlorine to your water supply. It's a disinfectant called chloramine. But with a trusted Big Berkey water filter, you can keep chloramine out of your water. New NSF EPA certified lab tests show EPA Berkey water filters remove chloramines, pharmaceuticals, BPA, pesticides, bacteria and viruses, all forms of fluoride, and much more. Big Berkey water filters are the original and most trusted on the market, the gold standard in water purification. And our filters last for years at less than 2 cents per gallon. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get your Big Berkey today. Call 1-877-99-BERKEY or click BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
Are you excited about the World Wide Web? Do you want a place where you can share your ideas and express yourself? Well, dial up your modems and stream on down to the GCN Live Community Forum. Lots of radical features await you there.
Wow, Internet guy, I'm so glad I went to the GCN Live Community Forum.
You too can discover why the World Wide Web is awesome. Just go to gcnlive.com/forum. That's gcnlive.com/forum. I'll see you in cyberspace. Friend GCN Live on Diaspora and Cross.tv.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
We're thinking here of hiring Mr. Rutkowski to be one of our staff announcers. Of course, he'll get the same pay as our other staff announcer, Bob Zanotti, which means in that case that I wouldn't hope to pay for the next Starbucks coffee with it.
Darn.
We're exploring here all aspects of UFOs and related research, abductions, the alleged messages that ET purportedly presents to us of peace and brotherhood. But it would seem to me here that if ET is all powerful and can get here from 2,000 light years away or whatever, can't they enforce peace upon us if it's really something that's going to endanger this planet, if they care?
Well, I have no idea. In fact, this is one of the biggest themes in ufology and science fiction alike. What is the intent of aliens if some of them are out there at all? I mean, do we really have a prime directive where you're not supposed to interfere? And if you're not supposed to interfere, then what do you make of abductions and showing yourselves, as you dig up, lavender fields in France and whatnot? I mean, there's a whole series of questions around that. I mean, are we, anthropological experiments from Zeta Reticuli, from grad students, or are we, really interpreting things purely through a terrestrial lens that we're really misinterpreting what's really going on? And I don't know. I mean, I would have no idea what the intent of aliens really might be, because by definition they're alien. One would think that there would be some desire for self-preservation on the side of aliens, so that would argue against contact. Exploration, well, if you've come here from out there, one would assume that you could do it remotely using robots and whatnot. So would we necessarily need direct contact? I don't see how. I mean, aliens working within our government or in secret bases, that sounds a lot like what we see in Star Trek episodes and so forth. So it sounds more like a terrestrial interpretation of what aliens might be thinking like or acting like. I don't know what an alien would be like because I haven't met one yet. Although some of the people I work with, that's neither here nor there.
I always liked Terence McKenna's idea that if aliens were actually here, they probably would hide within the spores of a cubensis mushroom and over thousands and tens of thousands of years slowly help sort of micromanage in some sense of the word, but manage the growth of our brains and the instilling psychedelic experiences to help expand our conscious and our awareness. And that if there was any aliens on the planet, according to McKenna, that would be the way that they would try to influence us, as opposed to coming down and not having spacesuits on and asking to take me to your leader, that sort of outmoded 50s style, and a very new agey style now. That sort of inclination of people to think that that's got to be the way that this sort of contact is going to take place. Just go to Project Camelot or to Alfred Weber's Exopolitics website and read about the latest whistleblower who's come forward with the latest Project Serpos type story. To me, it is so ludicrous what people and millions of people are buying into this. It's really frightening to me that people have, what's the term? They've suspended their disbelief. I mean, it conforms with their hopes, wishes, and aspirations, or fears and paranoia, depending on the bent. You just have a complete lack of, just fully conscious, objective, rational thinking.
Well, like I said, metamodernism, that's, anything goes. And it's being accepted.
Well, that's one of the problems we have, of course, with journalism today. We assume there are always two sides that are treated equally. So if we get one story, we have to go to the other side, and their story may be total nonsense. Obvious nonsense, but we have to take it anyway and give it equal weight.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And there are situations, of course, where there may be two sides to the story, but one side is less credible. In the case of, a violent incident, let's say a rape or something like that, there are two sides to that because there's two persons involved. But one is a violent act perpetuated on another person. And, one is clearly in the wrong, and regardless of circumstances, that is simply inexcusable. So,
but Judge, she wanted it. I swear to God, she wanted it.
Yeah, there are two sides, but, do you really want to hear the other side?
Well, we have a certain cable TV network in the U.S. that will frequently try to present the possibility that the female of the species faked it. It didn't really happen. She faked it, or again, she wanted it. She deliberately tried to get that guy in trouble.
Yeah, well, it's what is, why the spin actually exists. And certainly lawyers can use this to their advantage. And yes, we are getting a little away from the UFO question. But it is true that in ufology, anything goes, and people can come up with some very outlandish explanations, and nobody's challenging them because sometimes it takes too much effort to contradict or to come up with explanations. And sometimes it just leads you down paths that you really don't need to go down. And it really can cause a lot of problems.
This may be a good place to go into a question from one of our posters at forum.theparacast.com. We're at the question bank. You can ask questions of our guests. And this comes from Sentry, longtime poster.
Let me just explain to our listeners, that's Kurt Collins.
Yes. He doesn't ask many questions, but when he does, they're good ones.
Okay.
And he has more likes than he has posts, so that's always a good sign. Most paranormal encounters, from Bigfoot to religious aberrations, leave us with nothing but quote-unquote sightings. Some suggest these experiences share a common stimulus or trigger, but are interpreted differently by each individual. If most of it is in our heads, what do you think is putting it there?
We have 1 minute for your response. We can continue the next segment. Go ahead.
Sure. Kurt's asked a really good question there, and it goes back to what Miguel had asked originally. That are there commonalities, and are these commonalities based in something else? I think the human mind is capable of a lot of interesting things, and I think it certainly is capable of generating images that can be interpreted in so many ways by different people. I think that human creativity is really underrated. I think people have come up with some really fantastic, wild ideas. Einstein's are out there all over the place. They just have to be realized and tapped into. So I think that the triggers and the stimuli can produce different things. But if something leaves behind hard evidence, those are what we're looking for. And whether it's Bigfoot or a religious visitation or UFOs, I think those are what we have to concentrate on. But what's putting it there in the in the original form? Well, Persinger would say it's caused by electromagnetic radiation. Ufologists might say it's aliens, religious apparition.
And we'll find out what the other answer is in a moment. Chris Rutkowski is here with Gene. NKK, you're in the Paracast.
A little right, a little left, but always independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Get on board with the Tax Admiral. Don't pick on the IRS alone. I'll cut penalties and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company helping people clean up their mess with the IRS.
If you owe $10,000 or more, then call the Tax Admiral.
Call 800-287-7180. Again, that's 800-287-7180. 800-287-7180.
Making the right decisions is a challenge to investors. Are we going to see economic growth, slide into a recession, or at worst, depression? Hi, Ted Anderson from Midas Resources. We all know when a company acts irresponsibly, divesting ourselves in a move towards safety is prudent. When the market becomes volatile, U.S. Treasuries are a safe haven. But what do you do when the U.S. government overextends itself and spends beyond its means? Many investors are turning toward gold as a common-sense alternative to traditional paper investments. Midas Resources has put together a powerful book titled 10 Reasons to Own Gold, discussing costs, benefits, risks, featuring full-color illustrations, weights, and measures. The book is free and can be yours by calling 800-686-2237. Paper investments are dwarfed by gold's 6,000-year history. Discover how gold may be right for you and your IRA by calling 800-686-2237. Whether buying or it's time for you to sell, the book is free. Call 800-686-2237.
We've been patiently waiting. Waiting while you tried to ignore us. Waiting while you acted like we didn't exist. Waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tablet or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a silver dollar in a book explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
You pick up the receiver with your heart racing and sweat dripping from your forehead. You finally muster the courage to dial the number to call into your favorite talk radio show. It rings once, twice, and then...
Hello, it's GCN. What's your name and the state you're calling from?
Surprised you got through, you squeak out.
Jason from Minnesota.
Please hold.
As you patiently wait for your turn, you begin to daydream about being a famous talk radio host and what it would be like to have your own show.
Jason from Minnesota, you're up.
Millions of loyal listeners worldwide waiting to call and talk to you.
Caller, are you there?
Cheering crowds surround you, calling out your name.
Jason! Jason! Going once, twice. Okay, we gotta move on to the next caller.
You blew it.
Huh? Wait, no!
Interact with the host you're listening to right now, online at GCNlive.com. Click on the community link. Engage with other listeners. Ask questions. Start debates. Don't agree with the host? Let them know. Be a part of the community at GCNlive.com.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
Okay, Chris Rutkowski, would you continue your answer, please?
Sure. The third one would be that someone from a religious bent would interpret it as a spiritual intervention of some sort, possibly manifesting, bleeding crucifixes and all that sort of thing. So, there's some attempt to get some documentation and some physical evidence regarding some of these things, but there always is some sort of physical stimulus as well. So there is always a physical stimuli. It's our minds that interpret them in one way or another. And whether they're UFOs or aliens or a religious apparition, it really depends on the person's viewpoint. What gets really confusing is when an abductee or contactee is very religious and then will interpret what is ostensibly an abduction experience as a religious experience. And the opposite sometimes occurs as well. So it's interesting to get these crossovers, but the ultimate question is, did it physically really happen, or is it happening, only in the mind in the sense that there was a very prosaic event, a coincidence of some sort, the apple falling from the tree and interpreted as caused by aliens, Jesus, or a Bigfoot?
Well, the question would be then, is that interpretation, Bigfoot, the ghosts, E.T., whatever, that's our take on it.
That is our take on it. The question, I would still say, but did it really happen at all? That gets into the real nitty-gritty. Did the apple really fall? Was it always on the ground and we only thought that it fell? There's a lot of ways that you can dissect this, and it's not debunking in the sense. We just want to know what really happened, and some of those questions are very, very tricky and can be very uncomfortable.
Now, this is interesting here. I'm just noticing something on your site, Ufology Research.
Okay.
What are the good questions in ufology? I'm going to read one. Okay, you explain where this comes from. I'm just going to read the last one, number 41.
Okay.
Is Nick Redfern actually an alien? And I don't just mean that he's from Great Britain.
Exactly. Well, High Strangeness, another blog, posted a number of questions for a different podcast. And
there are a few others. We don't mention them.
There are a few others, to aid in the debate rather than in the forums that you have, produced a series of questions, and there were 20 produced by by Mark, and then the people who were reading the blogs added a bunch more. This was one that was added by one of the blog readers and commenters. And I mean, I like Nick. I've met him. I think that was a reaction from someone who thought that Nick was getting a little too far afield in some of his theories and beliefs. And to me, it's all in the interpretation, isn't it?
I want to read another one. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Should the 3 strikes you're out rule apply to Roswell smoking guns?
Ooh. Well, that's a good one.
I think it should be 2 strikes myself.
Well, then we're past it right now. That's it.
Yeah, we're past that. I mean, people want to know, is Roswell real? Did Roswell really happen? From time to time, we get people promoting videos and card out witnesses and eyewitnesses and sons and daughters and grandchildren of eyewitnesses. And, now with the slides, is it possible to get beyond all this? And I've had a chat with Stan Friedman about this. And I'm arguing that if there was any real evidence, let's say documents, attesting to the reality that something really did crash at Roswell, after all the years that have been going on, I think those documents would be long since destroyed. I don't think that there would be any evidence left. I think if there were pieces picked up, those pieces would be locked away, not at Area 51, not at Hangar 1 or 17 or whatever.
Certainly not at Montauk Point.
Certainly not at Montauk, and you wouldn't have an alien on display in a glass case in a museum.
On top of an army blanket.
On top of an army blanket. That's simply not how it would happen.
But is George Adamski really a distant relative of Billy Meyer?
Well, define relative. I mean, I suppose there's certainly a lot of relation between the early contactees and the more modern contactees. Certainly in some of the ways that Billy Meyer was, showing off some of the photos of dinosaurs and whatever that he took when he was taken to another dimension and whatnot are very similar to what Adamski was doing. So I would say there's a lot of similarity between what Adamski was hawking and what Meyer was claiming. To this day, there are Adamski supporters and there are Meyer supporters. So there's a lot of parallels in the religiosity of ufology. And that's a topic all to its own as well.
Let's continue with the questions, please.
Hit me.
Don't tempt me.
Well, we've got quite a few questions, Chris. And this one comes from Bluto392, who posted this at our question bank at forum.theparacast.com. And this is an interesting kind of juxtaposition in thinking. And he wonders if it's possible that whatever is behind this phenomena, I think these phenomena, may be fumbling around in the dark as much as we are, but somehow they've stumbled upon us instead of the other way around. Could UFOs, abductions, MIBs, even odd reports and old reports of fairy folk or ghosts be their attempts to be heard, but they just can't figure us out enough to effectively speak with us? Could it be constructive to consider ways in which other species might try to communicate and then try to communicate, make an effort to communicate with them and meet them halfway? I remember Jacques Vallée said something that really kind of made me sit up and take notice. He said, this all seems very, it's almost like a program, the way this whole, these whole encounters and waves of sightings, they seem to be some sort of control mechanism or some sort of software program. And he said, if it is that, couldn't we interject something into the code, some sort of prearranged? I forget what his analogy was or his example was, but is there a way for us to, number one, ever decipher these communications? And if so, is there a way that we can meet them halfway? I think it's a good question.
Yeah. And, this goes back to the question of what aliens would be like. How would they communicate with us? Would they want to communicate with us? What intentions might there be? There's what is it? Sirens of Titan, where alien who had crashed a spacecraft on Titan or somewhere out there many thousands of years ago needed a replacement part for his spacecraft. And so he gently guided the Neanderthals on Earth to develop civilization to the point where humans develop space travel, and space travel eventually reaches Titan and discover him in a spacecraft. And on board the spacecraft is the essential part of the spacecraft that he needed us to develop, which turned out to be a can opener. Is there, what would be the purpose of communicating? And
it sounds like a Rod Serling episode.
Yeah. Would we recognize communication? And then this goes back to a lot of the first contact scenarios. Would there, if there is a prime directive and we're under observation, would they subtly try to contact us? Would they try to keep us from blowing ourselves up by, having a power failure just as the nuclear missiles were about to be launched? As Sala's talking about these days, are there other ways of intervening? I don't. Maybe they can't figure us out. Maybe we're so bizarre, we are so primitive that they're worried about us making inroads into the cosmic neighborhood. These are wonderful concepts that have been talked about and hashed around so many times in science fiction. Again, we don't know what aliens really are like, what the motivation for contact with us would be. Some would argue that they really have no reason to contact us. Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with the Rama series.
Let's go into what that means in a moment, okay?
Sure.
The motivations of aliens. Chris Rutkowski with Gene and KK. You're in
the Paracast.
Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
There are hundreds of silver products on the market today, but there's nothing like the astonishing health benefits of the multi-patented One Silver Solution. Boost your immune system at a great price with our Silver Solution Liquid, starting at $12.95 a bottle. Now available in regular and extra strength. That's half the price of the leading competitors. Call 844-USILVER for your free catalog, or go to onesilversolution.com. onesilversolution.com. There is only one Silver Solution.
Do you owe the IRS money? Has the IRS garnished your wages or put a lien against your house? The IRS has the power to make you pay back what they claim you owe and will stop at nothing to collect. There is a solution. Call Signature Tax now. Speak with our professionals and feel the weight of your tax burden lifted from your shoulders. Call now for your free and confidential analysis. 800-481-3147. Again, that's 800-481-3147. 800-481-3147.
Are your Google search results killing you? Unflattering content in blogs, news articles, online reviews, social media, or other sources can jeopardize your reputation, your business, and your livelihood. Let Reputation.com help. Our patented technology will make the truth about you more visible while pushing down unwanted negative content. Improve your Google search results. Call Reputation.com at 1-800-831-0771 for a free consultation. That's 800-831-0771.
Honey, why are there fish swimming in our bathtub?
Aren't they cute? You need more omega-3s, and those fish oil pills with toxins and heavy metals are scary. So I'm making fish oil from scratch.
Oh boy, didn't I tell you I'm ordering Nutrigold fish oil? It's exceptionally pure.
That's That's what they all say.
No, really. Nutrigold's fish oil is concentrated from pure cold water fish straight off the Alaskan coast and manufactured right here in the USA.
Well, cold Alaskan waters are much more pristine than the polluted waters that other fish oils are sourced from.
That's what I'm saying. And it's 5-star certified to meet international purity, potency, and freshness standards.
Well, that sounds even better.
Great. I'll be in my office ordering a few bottles. If I order now on www.fishoil.best, I can save $5 using the promo code MyFishOil. Honey, why are there bees in my office?
Get rid of those fish burps for good. Go to Nutrigold's U.S.-made fish oil products by going to www.fishoil.best and get $5 off by entering MyFishOil at checkout.
Hey, Berkey Guy here. Are you still drinking unfiltered tap water? Does your water contain chlorine or fluoride? Will you have drinkable water in an emergency? The Berkey Guy is here to help you remove these and other potential contaminants from your water, thus helping you drink clean, purified water. We offer Berkey water purification systems at the lowest available prices online. Don't go another moment without a Berkey system. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands drink clean, purified water. Join them by visiting goberkey.com or call me, the Berkey Guy, at 877-886-3653. That's 877-886-3653.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gray Alien Report, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Is it the Paracast? Chris O'Brien becomes KK for this episode, known by his real name, because Chris Rutkowski is here. We don't want any confusion. We're talking about alien motivations. And we look at aliens or possible alien life in terms of what we do, or in terms of Star Trek. You know, we don't think that alien means they have motivations we can't even begin to understand.
Well, maybe aliens actually talk out their butts and they're anal probing us to figure out why we don't.
Well, of course, if you're a politician, you do.
Well, as I start my lectures sometime by saying I know for a fact that aliens have come down to Earth, have taken over the minds and bodies of humans, and are, among us every day. Otherwise, how can you explain politicians? So, we don't know. And some have argued that the aliens are here already. And I think, as KK mentioned, maybe they are microscopic. Maybe, there's some manipulation of DNA. Maybe there are some remnants of an alien contact from hundreds of thousands of years ago in our DNA. And that's why we are the way we are ourselves. There's so many factors, and it's amazing to speculate. And I think the thing is, we simply don't know until that moment. And, maybe we're getting closer and closer to that moment. I mean, I've been predicting for a couple of years now that we're not that far away from discovering a really Earth-like planet. I mean, we're really close with this latest one, Kepler 572 or whatever it is, that is not much bigger than Earth and in the Goldilocks zone where it's, where there's liquid water on the planet and so forth. And it's, still 100 light years away or something. So we're getting closer, but, we're really not that far away from discovering aliens or a possible alien planet not far away from us within communication range. And, when that happens, maybe, that will lead to actual communication with aliens, whatever they might be like. And maybe they're a lot like us and simply can't get off their planet because of political reasons or energy constraints or the will to do so. Maybe they're more advanced than us. Maybe they're less advanced. But the point is, it would signal a real change in who we are, that we're no longer a series of warring tribal factions on the surface of this rocky planet orbiting Sol. We would represent, a civilization that needed to speak as one and to work as one, because it would be us against them, and who knows what that them really would be like.
Also, do you ever think of another possibility that occurs to me sometimes? When people remember or think they've had an abduction, they are remembering how the human race was created. It's part of our racial memory that we were part of a hybrid race, or are the hybrid race created by aliens thousands of years ago. Well,
again, anything is possible to conceive of. I don't know if the detail of our racial memory would be that intense like that. But it's possible that our brains are hot-wired for such a thing, and that is what we are sensing and experiencing during an abduction. A contact with something, a contact with something that's unfamiliar, and that brings up these images that are hot-wired into us.
Well, it's a thought here. The question is the reality of what we see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what is it that we really are experiencing? Are we really seeing things the way they are, or are we interpreting things the way they are? It's just that the other thing that can be said is that reality isn't an illusion. It just seems that way.
KK, some more questions, please.
Okay, this one comes from another Canuck, Robert, our esteemed Burnt State, who has recently passed the 3,600 postmark, and he has 3,700, almost 3,800 likes.
And wait till you see what he does tomorrow.
Okay. He points out something that's interesting, and it's he says you often highlight, Chris, extraordinary cases with UFOs that appear to be electric in their strange shapes and forms. And with so many compelling, non-traditional examples in the history of ufology, does this make the phenomenon just more multifaceted with many possible answers, or does it make you more suspicious that a single source may be responsible?
Well, this goes back to our interpretation. One of the big problems we have when we're analyzing UFO reports and data is the shape. Something as simple as asking a witness what the shape is. And some will say round, or some will say circular. And that doesn't mean anything. When I say round, you mean like a ball? No, I mean like a plate. Well, that's not round, that's flat. And also when a person sees a disc, you usually don't actually see a disc. You'll either see a circle if the disc is flipped on its edge and facing you, looking towards the center of the plate, or on its edge you would see a line, in which case it would appear to be a rod or a cigar. And so something as simple as a shape of a UFO, even football shapes, and what's a disc at an oblique angle. I mean, something as simple as that makes us suspicious that maybe there is just one shape of a UFO, and maybe all the other interpretations are just variations.
Just perspective.
Yeah.
Ray Stanford has kind of hinted around to me. I don't normally talk about Ray's analysis on the show, and I promised I wouldn't bring it up again, but I really want to emphasize this point, that he is convinced that there really are no discs as described by witnesses. These objects are spinning, and he thinks they're polygonal, that they have multiple sides, that when you spin them, they appear to be round. And he's done some work on still frame, high-speed still frame images that seem to suggest that we're dealing with multi-sided objects that are in a rough circular pattern, but when they're spun, if they're spinning, the sides kind of blur into a circular shape, which would make some sense. And if that's the case, then possibly your observation here that we may be misinterpreting based on our limited ability to ascertain visually something high strange that we're looking at that's outside of our realm of understanding, that maybe we're just our primal sort of modus operandi of describing our experience. It tends to adhere to what are common descriptions of these objects in terms of their circular nature. So I think more work needs to be done in this regard. And another question that's been brought up is, this one comes from Technomage, who comes out of the woodwork for a good guest like you. And he says, since Canada seems to be a hotbed of UFO activity, doesn't it make sense to find one or two hotspots up there and start a camera project to get some hard evidence? And he uses the example of my San Luis Valley project that I'm currently underway of attempting to have a triangulated camera array in the San Luis Valley in Colorado. Do you think that would make sense to identify some hotspot areas, possibly on the lake there in Ontario? There's some places in BC that tend to have ebbing and flowing waves of activity. Do you think that would be a possible effective way of possibly taking this to the next level in terms of hard science?
Well, yeah, and there's two sides of that, of course. That Canada does seem to be a hotbed of UFO activity in the sense that we have 1,200 cases, between 1,200 and I forget what the other data shows right now, but more than 1,000 cases every year. But that's 1,000 cases across the entire country in a year that are being reported. And Canada's a pretty big country, so to pick one particular spot, even statistically of that, you'd be waiting a long time for that one particular case to come across. However, you're right about on the lake. As a matter of fact, Jennifer Jarvis has something called Orb Watch, and she sets up on the the south side of Lake Ontario, just to the west of Buffalo. And she's been, making video records of things over the lake for quite some time. So there is a lot of that going on already. And unfortunately, what she's getting seems to be a lot of aircraft because she's looking directly towards the Toronto airport, and some boats on the water and things like that. But it does make sense to use camera projects to look at some hard evidence, to try and get some photographic evidence. Of course, I mean, Hestelin has they've had cameras set up for quite some time. For decades now, and it's only recently that they're starting to get some decent results coming out of Norway there.
Let's get into more of this in our next segment with Chris Rutkowski. And KK and Gene, you're in
the Paracast. The nation's largest independently owned and operated talk radio network. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We're back with Chris Rutkowski, discussing the possible impact or meaning of some of these camera projects to set up cameras in a specific region and see what they produce in terms of pictures. Chris O'Brien, our own KK Barnes, is doing that with the San Luis Valley camera project. But I have a crazy question to ask, which is, of course, the fly in the ointment question. And that is it possible the presence of some kind of means of detection will deter the phenomenon from showing up?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good question. Schrodinger's cat for ufology. Is the attempt to document make the phenomenon shy? And then, now I'm trying to remember who coined that. There's somebody who coined the phrase that ufology is based on a shy phenomenon. It's very possible that there's something there. I mean, I've gone out to so-called UFO hotspots and nothing's shown up. And people were completely baffled. Well, it was here the night before. It was here the night before that, but you came and nothing was seen. So does the existence of instrumented detection cause the phenomenon to not show up? And what does that mean? Does that mean that it's psychological? Does it mean that there is something in the environment that makes the thing sensitive to observation of whatever kind? So it's a very interesting question. Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it certainly is a possibility that there's an awareness factor.
That really brings up a lot of intriguing possibilities. That there, the whole reflective, the appearance of reflectivity in these events and reported experiences. There may be some sort of symbiotic relationship. Possibly people need to be in a particular open state or open frame of mind that allows these objects to have permission, if you will, to appear. There's a spot in the San Luis Valley, for instance, called Zapata Falls, and on the hillside of the Sangres there's a burn area that was totally burnt out about 40 years ago. And there's all these, sometimes hundreds, even thousands of these pinpoints of blinking lights appear on this hillside, which is about 2 miles away from the parking area that sits right down the trail from the Zapata Falls, and it's about 1,500 feet, I think, above the valley floor. And I don't know how many times I've had people tell me that if they get in this, kind of plays into what Stephen Greer has been attempting to do with coherent thought sequencing. There does seem to be a correlation that when people go into a quiet meditative state, that these blinking lights tend to be almost like puppy dogs, and they're curious and they tend to approach. But if people are yelling and screaming and going, "Oh my God, there's lights!" Oh, blah, 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 they tend to stay away. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe there is some sort of dependent symbiosis that's going on between the observer and the actual phenomenon itself. That's something that I've often wondered. It seems that these things show up when you least expect them, and when you're really pumped and primed for them, they tend to to stay away. It's when you kind of forget about it and you start going about your business and you become distracted that they seem to show up. And if you put yourself into a place of inner quiet, let's say, into a pseudo meditative state, then that does, at least in this particular example, it does seem to attract the phenomenon to come closer, even close enough for them to be in and around the experiencers.
Well, and I would go back to something I mentioned earlier about an anthropological experiment. If there really were aliens monitoring Earth in some fashion, and they wanted to monitor people and get some detailed observations, one would expect that an anthropologist, thinking as a terrestrial anthropologist, the way to do it is to do it when there's only one person around, or maybe two, who aren't really aware of your presence. But as soon as your presence is suspected, that's the time to make yourself scarce.
That certainly creates all sorts of interesting possibilities. But isn't that the way the UFO phenomenon has existed? As soon as we think we have a pattern, the pattern is changed. As soon as we think we have a place where they're always seen, that stops.
That's true, and this goes back to the hotspot question. I mean, for a while it was true that Lake Ontario, Lake Erie were hotspots. It was true that Stephenville was a hotspot. It was true that Gulf Breeze was a hotspot, and the hotspots seem to move all over the place. It happens in Canada too, where we'll get more reports from one particular region in Canada that, in one year, and then the following year the reports there are down, but then they're higher in another location. So the phenomenon does seem to shift around, and trying to make sense of all these trends and facets of it is really driving crazy.
There's a couple of questions here from our listeners about the Falcon Lake Steve Michalak case. And Creepy Green Light says, all these years later, what do you make of the Falcon Lake incident? I know you've talked about this in the past when you've been on the show, but let's kind of give it a quick go around here. He says, I've heard good arguments, both pro and con, but I seem to remember hearing that Stephen liked his alcohol and that he couldn't bring other folks back to the exact landing site the following day because he could not remember exactly where it was, supposedly. And Sentry chimes in and asks, is the Falcon Lake case a very strong ufological case, in your opinion, because of its physical pieces of evidence, the burns on Stephen's chest, for instance, and some physical side evidence. But he's wondering if you have doubts about this case, and he wonders, are there other physical trace evidence UFO cases that you favor as strong examples of evidence of an anomalous technology?
Well, I will state again, I think the Falcon Lake case is a really good case, seriously underrated, and I would actually place it ahead of Roswell in terms of evidence. And the reason I do that is because in the Falcon Lake case, we have a location. We know where it happened. We don't know exactly where Roswell happened. I mean, there's, a debris field that was found, but trying to locate it exactly now is difficult, and there's nothing there. Whereas you can go back to the Falcon Lake case over and over again and see the exact spot, a very self-contained site. We know it was investigated intently by the United States Air Force, the Canadian Air Force, by Royal Canadian Mounted Police and several other agencies, and we have literally hundreds of pages of documentation of their investigations, their interviews, the transcripts of interviews, photographs of the area, which is something we simply don't have with Roswell. There's no question that something occurred. It was debated in the Canadian Parliament. There were some, we had the witness to the event, which we don't really have in Roswell, who actually saw it happen right at that particular spot. The witness was physically injured. The medical records were made available. He was examined by medical doctors. He was examined by, as well as psychiatrists, as well as general practitioners. There was radiation confirmed at the site. In fact, the Canadian government considered closing off the area to the public because of a perceived danger to the public because of intense radiation. Radioactive pieces were tested and analyzed at Atomic Energy of Canada, which is the same institution, in fact, the same laboratory that tested radioactive debris from Cosmos 954, which crashed into northern Canada in the 1970s. We have so much documentation. We have there's absolutely no doubt that this is everything you could possibly want in a UFO case. I think it's, a really wonderful opportunity to really, figure out what really went on based on the evidence that there is. The question that you mentioned about Creepy Green said Stephen Michalak liked his alcohol. That question's been raised a number of times. In fact, the Canadian Air Force thought that they would shake the witness's story by getting him drunk in a bar.
Let's figure that out in a moment here, okay? Chris Rutkowski with Gene and KK, you're in.
The Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Hi, this is Walt Augustinowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of ID Stronghold. By now you've heard our commercials about wallets that protect you from electronic pickpocketing. 10 years ago, I created a way to protect my own cards from prying eyes after government officials started talking about issuing a national ID card with a built-in radio chip called RFID. I felt having to broadcast my personal information was an invasion of privacy. Soon after, it was also announced that credit cards, debit cards, U.S. passports, hotel room keys, and even transit passes would all soon incorporate RFID. It was then I formed ID Stronghold to share my inventions in blocking RFID signals with the world. There are a lot of misconceptions out there today about RFID. I encourage everyone to get informed and get protected. Please go to idstronghold.com and get the facts and the wallets, sleeves, or badge holders you need to protect your personal financial data. You'll be pleasantly surprised that through our direct sales model, you won't pay more than other comparable unprotected wallets. It is as though the protection is free. Visit idstronghold.com today.
We've been patiently waiting while you tried to ignore us, waiting while you acted like we didn't exist, waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tablet or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a silver dollar in a book explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Then get on board with the Tax Admiral and let us steer your way to financial freedom.
The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. They can freeze your bank accounts, seize your car, home, will garnish your paychecks and benefits.
Don't take on the IRS alone. I can fight for you using industry secrets that can help stop the IRS. I'll cut your penalties, slash your interest, and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company with over 30 years experience helping people clean up their mess with the IRS. And we have a 95% customer satisfaction rating.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, are facing an audit, a lien, or levy, then call me right away.
Call 800-287-7180. Again, that's 800-287-7180. 800-287-7180. 800-287-7180.
This is Kurt Sutherland, the author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
I haven't heard that particular wrinkle. They tried to get him drunk in a bar to see what he'd really say.
Absolutely, it's
oh,
actually
no
in a document from the Royal Canadian Air Force that they took him to get him to shake his story because they had asked him, "Do you drink?" And the implication was, were you drunk? Or are you an alcoholic? And he said no. So when they took him to the bar, as they noted, he didn't refuse any of the drinks that they offered. And I think they actually specified it was Ryan 7 or something like that he had. And therefore they said, well, she's lying, about whether he, doesn't drink because obviously he drinks. Well, there's a difference between whether you drink to excess and whether you drink socially, and that's what Michalek meant. And I actually had the opportunity on many occasions to spend time with him and his family, and at no point was he ever drunk. We certainly had wine together and things like that. In fact, when Unsolved Mysteries, NBC flew us down to their set to recreate the event and interview him on camera, we did, certainly had some wine with dinner, and that was about it. Now, does that mean that he drinks, or does that mean that he, has social drinks, depending on the occasion? So, he certainly, liked alcohol as much as anyone else did, but he certainly wasn't drunk. As far as bringing people to the exact site the following day, actually he was incapable of movement the following day. He was actually very ill. It was actually a number of weeks later that he went out to the site. And during those intervening weeks, the trees all got leaves. When he was out there it was, in the spring, and the trees didn't have much in the way of vegetation. When he went out there, everything was overgrown, and it didn't look right to him. He was very confused. He was puzzled as to where it was. And where the Royal Canadian Air Force and Mounted Police had taken him was actually close, had a lot of characteristics of where this was, but it didn't quite look right. So they actually never found the site with them. He went back a couple of times after that to find the site, and it took him a few tries before he actually did find the site. And at the site found his charred undershirt and the charring of some of the vegetation that was there as well, and got samples that the RCMP and Royal Canadian Air Force sampled and examined then. So there's no question that it's a tricky site to get into. In fact, when I was there a number of years ago, you had to go in by pack mule and on horseback to get into the site, and it was actually quite a difficult ride, I have to say. Since then, some entrepreneur at a riding stable has created a UFO ride, and you can actually pay something like $60 a head or something like that, and they'll take you into the site for an hour's tour or something like that, and take you to the site and tell you all about the case. So it's not exactly out in the open. It's in some very thick brush and on a very rocky terrain. So, is the argument that he should have been able to find it easier if he was an experienced woodsman? Well, he wasn't an experienced woodsman. He was an occasional person who tromped around in the bush and wasn't all that good at it. So I would say it's puzzling as to why he couldn't find the exact site later when he had the RCMP and Air Force with him, but not. I would say I wouldn't write it off simply because of that.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Chris, that this is one of the stronger cases. And, Jacques Vallée covered it. I think Hynek covered it in their writings. And I think it does go down as one of those real dark horse important cases that many people fairly new to the field are unaware of. Of course, Shag Harbor comes to mind as another Canadian case that really has some, Chris Stiles' work. I think that there's really some fire there. Where there's smoke, there's generally fire, and that would be another good one. But, I'm wondering here, has his story changed over time? Has there been any embellishment? Has he pretty much stuck with the original account? You spent some time with him. How has his life changed, for instance? Has his thinking been altered by this case? Is he now a hard and fast true believer, or does he feel remorse that he was singled out? How about his health? Has he had any?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. He actually did pass away about 10 years ago, but to his deathbed, he didn't change his story. He was of the opinion that if you don't believe him, that's too bad, but this is what happened. The other curious thing about this is that he never talked about aliens. He was convinced it was some sort of secret craft, like a vertical takeoff something or a moon lander. I mean, this was 1967 when, we were just in the process of talking about going to the moon and whatever. He thought this was some sort of secret government craft, and that's why when he walked up to the craft, he thought it was an American secret vehicle of some sort. And he had a lot of respect for the military, having been a military man himself. So he thought in those terms. He didn't think in terms of aliens. And even many years later, when the Unsolved Mysteries was interviewing about this, he didn't talk about aliens. He thought this was some sort of terrestrial vehicle of some kind. And that's another interesting aspect. That
kind of shades of Cash Landrum.
It was something that he thought it had to be real because he was experiencing it. And flying saucers from Mars obviously aren't real, but this that was sitting in front of him was something that was tangible, and he did touch it.
So in your estimation, the case holds up all these years later. I mean, we're going back almost 45 years now. So you think it still stands up? And
I think it still stands up, and the fact that we have all the documentation makes it very unique in the history of ufology.
Yeah.
I can't think of very many cases where we have so much documentation, plus the record of evidence, plus a witness who is willing to talk, plus an actual location which can still be visited.
Wow. Well, here's another interesting case that I remember being exposed to back in the early 90s when I was first getting involved in this morass of a so-called field called ufology. I often add an extra O to the word and call it ufology because there's so many foolish people running around. Present company excluded, of course, but...
Well, remember that
I'll
ufology comes from John Keel.
Yeah, if it had to have come from somewhere, I'm not surprised that that's where it came from. Well, here's a question from Legend Tripper, who's a very rare poster at forum.theparacast.com, but he's posted his question on the question bank for you, and this is his 8th post in over a year and a half. So you're bringing him out of the woodwork there, guy.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Rutkowski. I have always been intrigued by the cast of characters involved in the Cartmanian Corners Guardian case. Has it been definitively proven that Bobby Charlebois was Guardian and that Bob Oechsler of MUFON perpetuated this alleged case? Now, we must, for those of you who aren't aware of the Guardian case, this incredible nighttime video showed up, I think, 92, 93, somewhere around there, maybe somewhere 94. There, yeah.
Let's explain that case in our next segment.
Okay.
Because a lot of our listeners don't know. Chris Rutkowski is present and accounted for, as is KK Barnes. You're in
the Paracast.
Great minds think alike. The network for the independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
Do you owe the IRS money? Has the IRS garnished your wages or put a lien against your house? The IRS has the power to make you pay back what they claim you owe and will stop at nothing to collect. There is a solution. Call Signature Tax now. Speak with our professionals and feel the weight of your tax burden lifted from your shoulders. Call now for your free and confidential analysis. 800-481-3147. Again, that's 800-481-3147. 800-481-3147.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Silver has always been nature's very own antibiotic, and only one system allows you to produce an endless supply of nano-sized silver solutions right from the convenience of your home. Silver Lungs. With the addition of our unique lung delivery system, respiratory infections are targeted directly, where traditional oral administration simply cannot reach. This pioneering method also preserves the original particle sizes and delivers your silver solution directly into the bloodstream. See the Silver Lungs generator and lung delivery system at silverlungs.com. That's silverlungs.com.
That's the sound your brain makes when you realize you're buying something and forgot the coupon. Online or in a store, knowing that you're missing a deal is the worst. You need the app from Retail Me Not right now. Get thousands of coupons from 50,000 stores like Kohl's, Domino's, Best Buy, and more with crazy deals like 60% off, free shipping, and free gifts with purchase. You can get a text invite to download the Retail Me Not app 100% free right now for Apple or Android. Just text the code UPDATE to 42767. Then just show your phone at checkout to save. It literally couldn't be easier. It's 2015. Keep your coupons in your phone. Stop what you're doing and text UPDATE to 42767. Listeners will get a text with a link to download it 100% free. Never forget another coupon again. Text the code UPDATE to 42767 right now. That's UPDATE to 42767. Message and data rates may apply. For terms and privacy, visit retailmenot.com.
We've been patiently waiting while you tried to ignore us, waiting while you acted like we didn't exist, waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tablet or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
Hi, this is Tracy Torme, screenwriter, producer. You're listening to Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Let me remind you, we have another radio show called After the Paracast, which is available exclusively to subscribers of the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com to learn more. In last week's episode, we featured extended discussions with Red Pill Junkie that continued from the regular episode of the Paracast. With Paracast Plus, you also get the ad-free version of this show, an open chat room, more to come, plus.theparacast.com, and a free book, Chris O'Brien's Stalking the Tricksters, if you subscribe for 1 year or 5 years. Mr. Rutkowski, would you explain this case a little bit further for those who just
describe the very compelling footage that really had a lot of people tittering back when it was released by this mysterious character that called himself Guardian.
Well, yeah, and it actually started a little bit before then, but what most people remember as the Guardian case is a video that was shot somewhere in the vicinity of Ottawa, Ontario, where it ostensibly was a disc-shaped object with flashing lights. It was a little out of focus. The video itself was incredibly shaky, bouncing all over the place. But the story was that this object was seen, video was taken of it, and then there were some mysterious helicopters that were seen a little bit after that, all black, of course, seen patrolling the neighborhood, giving some chase. There was also a lot of documentation, and there were about, I would say, 10 ufologists in North America who received packages in the mail from this mysterious Guardian. Some of the packages contained videotapes and VHS tapes. Some actually just had still photographs, glossy photographs, and they all had some mysterious writing. They all had some information about a crash of a UFO somewhere in the area called Carp, which is just basically a suburb of Ottawa. Supposedly it was covered up. Whatever it was that crashed was carted away under the cover of darkness, people sworn to secrecy and all sorts of things. And in addition to this particular video showing the saucer, there was a secondary video of an alien that kind of resembled Stan Romanek's alien head from the window. In fact, there was a still photo of that was also passed around. And then some other scenery in the countryside around there. So something happened, and this was the story that went around it. Now, there were a number of really good investigators in the Ontario area at the time. There was Tom Theophanous, who is now out of ufology, but was very active at the time. Earl Bruce Knapp, everybody knows him from UFO Updates. He was involved. There was a fellow by the name of, his last name was Graham Goldfoot, something like that. He was actually in the Ottawa area. A number of people went to investigate, and they went to this location. There was a map, of course, in all of this that showed where this occurred, And the investigators went, and it was a typical rural setting, very similar to, I don't know, rural Pennsylvania, I suppose, rolling hills, all that sort of thing, small hobby farms and whatnot. And nobody had any recollection of there being any, government trucks or lights in the sky or anything. And the case began to fall apart because there was simply no evidence to support anything like this. Somebody did discover, however, a war game site, which was owned by one of the people in the Carp area. And there are all sorts of signs about, danger, government investigations, keep out, all this sort of stuff that he had put up himself. It was not official in any way. Some of the people who lived near there were some of the other individuals involved who said that they had seen these helicopters, had seen the UFO and so forth. One of the artifacts that was discovered by investigators on this war game site was a burned out truck, like a Ford 150 or something. There was signs of burning around it in the shrubbery. And what eventually was decided by the investigators, and they recreated this image, was that this was not a saucer in the sky that was moving around. It was actually a series of torches and flares that were set up around this truck, and the camera itself was moved up and down to give the illusion that this object was, zipping around the sky. And when you see it in that context, there's been some, side-by-side comparisons. It really does seem that there was a very elaborate hoax, and who knows who was beside it or behind it, whether it was Bobby Charlebois or somebody else, or Bob Exler himself. I know Exler really supported the case, believed it was absolutely true, but when people pressed him for further evidence and questioned him about some of the evidence, he simply didn't reply. I think the general consensus at The Guardian was a very elaborate hoax, and why somebody did this, I have no idea, but it certainly ranks right up there. And had the Roswell Slides Group been around at the time, boy, they would have had a heyday.
They would have tore it a new one. Well, speaking of Bob Exler, that's a name that you don't hear or see very often anymore. Do we know whatever happened to him? He hasn't really been. I haven't really seen mentions of him. Maybe one mention of him in the past 10, 15 years. Do we know whatever happened to him?
I really have no idea what happened to Bob.
He's a very enigmatic character that was involved in a number of questionable claims, and plus his own background kind of fell apart. He claimed, didn't he claim that he had worked for NASA, and it turns out he was a janitor for some facility or something.
Shades of Area 51, and
I'm a mission specialist.
Yeah, I
empty the garbage cans and refill coffee cups.
Yeah, and I accidentally spilled some Element 115 all over me. It's just
Whoa! We don't need any of that lurking about. What do you think? How about you, Gene? That name, Bob Exler, have you seen that name around?
It doesn't ring a bell.
You've never heard of Bob Exler?
I've heard of the name. I just can't think where it connects.
No.
It's one of there's so many names that have come forth.
Well, he was a real interesting character. I always kind of equated him to almost like a John Lear type, who's out there, whispering around, or Dan Brown is another one, or Dan Smith rather, is another one that jumps on cases and touts them and then disappears back into the woodwork.
Yeah,
how about Project Serpo or some of these other more recent questionable claims that have arisen? Of course, Len Kasten wrote the book about Project Serpo, where supposedly taken almost just verbatim out of Close Encounters, we sent a group of 12 or 13 astronauts to this star system called and there was a planet called Project Serpo, and they lived there for a number of years, and one of them died, and when they came back they were changed and all this. Where do you come down on some of these more elaborate stories that have been kind of touted here in the past 10, 15 years?
Well, it's there are some great stories. There's no question that storytelling is part of ufology, and that's one of the aspects I study, is the storytelling aspect. And of course, Keel was into that, and Vallée, and certainly a lot of other individuals have studied the storytelling of ufology as a mythology. And there's no it's not unusual that it would develop like this, that that it's taken on a life of its own, because there's no way to prove a lot of cases. You're talking about first-person accounts. It's a very personal, humanistic type of phenomenon. Very jealous, as some people have said, that it appears to some people and not to others. And a lot of people have taken on their religiosity with this, that they have a lot of invested in this. Certainly, it's been said that some abductees and contactees, develop their stories because of trauma in their lives, because of a desire for attention, because of a desire, or they have some low self-esteem issues and things like that. They're looking to be affirmed for some of their beliefs, and when they speak at conferences with like-minded individuals, it gives them a boost. It tells them that they're all right.
You know what? We're not going to be all right if we don't break.
Okay.
Chris Rutkowski with Gene and KK, you're in
the Paracast. Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
Are your Google search results killing you? Unflattering content in blogs, news articles, online reviews, social media, or other sources can jeopardize your reputation, your business, and your livelihood. Let Reputation.com help. Our patented technology will make the truth about you more visible while pushing down unwanted negative content. Improve your Google search results. Call Reputation.com at 1-800-831-0771 for a free consultation. That's 800-831-0771.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
We've been patiently waiting while you tried to ignore us, waiting while you acted like we didn't exist, waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tab or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a silver dollar in a book explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Sciatica, lower back pain, hip pain, poor posture. If you suffer from any of these problems, get ready to relax. Introducing an amazing product that's been in the market for over 25 years, the Sacro Wedgie. It was invented by a football coach using a common sense osteopath technique. He created this device to help his athletes by isolating and supporting the sacrum, which is the keystone of our anatomy. This wedge-shaped bone is in the center of our hips, where a lot of pain starts. Simply relax 20 minutes daily on the amazingly simple Sacro Wedgie body and let gravity do the work, helping muscles rebalance and start releasing nerves. Sit in the Sacro Wedgie at the computer or while traveling to help correct posture to finally help relieve those stubborn aches and pains for only $33.95. It's made in the USA, so click the family-owned website at sacrowedgie.com, spelled SACROWEDGY.com, or call 1-800-737-9295. That's 1-800-737-9295. Relax your back pain away with the Sacro Wedgie.
Hi, this is James Fox from Chasing UFOs. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So it's a case of low self-esteem that might make some people seek recognition in the UFO field, right?
That's been said, yeah. And in my book, Abductions and Aliens, that's one of the theories that I talk about, that it's more of a psychological and social phenomenon. You know, at the same time, there are cases in abductions that really puzzle me, that I don't see connected like that. So maybe we're dealing with not just one simple phenomenon. Maybe there's a continuum of experiences that can be looked at from a number of different angles. Maybe some are psychological for one reason. Maybe some are religious events, and maybe there is a physical phenomenon that is manifesting to some people and not to others. They're in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time. That there's so many possibilities, and I think we still haven't studied them as rigorously as they could be. I mean, Susan Blackmore has taken a crack at it. John Mack, of course, studied Whitley Strieber. A lot of people have looked at it, but the scientific community as a whole hasn't really taken a good look at the abduction phenomenon. And I think there's dozens of doctoral theses that need to be written regarding the abduction contactee phenomenon. And maybe we'll get to the bottom of it someday. Whether we're talking about a real phenomenon, maybe it is an anthropological experiment of some sort. Maybe there's some real natural phenomenon. Maybe there's a terrestrial phenomenon that's giving rise to it. And if it is a psychological phenomenon, I think science deserves to take a closer look at it, because it's affecting more and more people, and people who are, in the world, who have jobs, perhaps trading stocks, perhaps police, perhaps educators who are in our community telling others their beliefs. It's something that I think needs to be studied in great detail, and whether it's real with quotation marks around it or not, may be immaterial to the fact that I think science needs to take a closer look at this phenomenon as well as all the other aspects of the UFO phenomenon.
It's a sociologist's, dream world. If you really want to dig into it and really attempt to analyze it in a scientific manner, I think the same could be said of the cattle mutilation mystery, and the fact that, to my knowledge, no doctoral dissertations have ever been done looking at the spread of belief in that particular phenomenon back in the 70s into the 80s. What do you make, Chris, of these millions of people that are following people like David Wilcock and David Sereda, Stephen Greer, Alfred Weber, anything that Carrie Cassidy promotes? They have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They have millions of people that are buying into this stuff. They have suspended their disbelief, whether consciously or otherwise. And for some reason, this is, at least in my estimation, it's creating some sort of validation for maybe suspicions they might have, or beliefs that they want to, adhere to, and maybe it's we're seeing the creation of a new 21st century religion. But what do you think of all these millions of people that are approaching this from purely a place of entertainment and fantasy? Is there any hope for the field scientifically, with the vast preponderance of interest being very ungrounded and, I don't know, just I equate it as being, BF ignorant. Bum being the first word of B, and F, you can fill in the blanks. I think there's a lot of ignorance out there that's being pandered to. And there's people, David Wilcock lives in this huge mansion in Beverly Hills. Had a book on the New York Times bestseller list. What do you make of this? And is this really the death knell of scientific ufology?
Well, first of all, I think that we should be concerned about this trend. There's no question that many people are putting down good money for stuff that really isn't very useful for their lives at all. I don't think it's the death of scientific ufology, because we've seen the rise of the Roswell Slides Group and a number of others. I think that there still is some scientific ufology that needs to be done. Even Ted Phillips is doing some good work too out there in Missouri and wherever. So there are some people doing some really good work. They're not necessarily getting the attention that they deserve, but there is some good work being done. It is true that a lot of people are following people with a lot of interesting claims and stories without anything to back them up. And I think over the past couple of hours, we've been talking really about UFOs and ufology as a religion, with all the religious aspects to it. And I think that these particular views and the theories that are being proposed and the conventions and the seminars and the contact nights and so forth, they are really religious events. I mean, they really aren't based in fact at all, but people believe them because they want to believe them. And, given the unsettled nature that we're in right now, it's not surprising that people are looking not necessarily for affirmation, although that certainly is part of it, for affirmation and validation, but looking to the skies for some sort of salvation. We've messed up right now. Certain aspects of the Middle East look beyond any hope whatsoever, and if we can't solve it, somebody out there can. Maybe it's time for the aliens to finally reveal themselves through disclosure or whatnot
and solve all our problems for us.
And save us from ourselves, because we certainly have no idea how to do it. And if you look at conventional religion, some of them, the mega churches, are still attracting a lot of people because they're looking to God for salvation as well. That only God can solve this big mess once and for all. In the fundamental religions, whether they're Middle Eastern or elsewhere around the world, there's a hope that if we appease God or turn to God, everything will be all right, that we'll be saved, we'll enter heaven one way or another, and everything's going to be fine. So there's this looking outward. And that's a good thing in some senses, that we're looking outward to the stars, so that if there really are aliens out there, it puts us in our place, that we really are just sitting on a rocky planet in the middle of nowhere, on a spiral arm of a really nondescript galaxy. We're very, very small in that sense, and there's a very big universe out there, and maybe there's someone out there who can save us from this, whether it's God or an ultra-terrestrial or an extraterrestrial. That's what's driving all this interest in the esoteric nature of ufology.
I wonder, however, here, if when we look for ET to solve our problems, we're ceding responsibility to ET by doing that. Chris Rutkowski, would you tell our listeners where they can get more of your stuff and check it out?
Well, you can go to my blog, which is uforum.blogspot.com. My books are available on Amazon. Just look for my name, Chris Rutkowski, in UFO, and you'll be able to see a number of my books, ranging from the Canadian UFO Report, Abductions and Aliens, to the Big Book of UFOs, including a kid's book called I Saw It Too. And I am often on Facebook, and I tweet out as Ufology Research, so I'm available on social media as well.
You can find us on Twitter. Look for the Paracast on Twitter. Even when the dogs are barking, we're still there. You also can find us on Facebook. There are 2 Paracast fan clubs. We're not going to make them one, because you can't do that without killing the other, and we dare not do that. We've got all that great content up there. We also have another radio show called After the Paracast. It's available exclusively to subscribers of the Paracast Plus. Here's what you do to get your copy. You have to go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. We have simple sign-up instructions. You can subscribe month to month. You can subscribe for a year. You can subscribe for 5 years. If you go for a year or 5 years, we'll send you a copy of Chris O'Brien's Stalking the Tricksters, just like the trickster you hear outside right now, or whatever that creature is.
This show has really gone to the dogs.
Indeed. We have a neighbor here with 6 dogs and finding it very difficult to keep. Any case, go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com to learn more about our premium service, which includes the ad-free version of this show. All that good stuff. Chris O'Brien's site is OurStrangePlanet.com. Check out OurStrangePlanet.com. He also seeks donations for the San Luis Valley Camera Project. Chris Rutkowski, as usual, it's been extraordinary. Thanks for joining us on the Paracast.
You're most welcome.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.